Mental health has become a more popular topic over the recent years. It is less and less stigmatized to talk about mental health issues. However, with all that support and progress, mental health is still declining on average. This fact points to a deeper underlying issue that needs fixing. In this video, I present an accurate framework that explains depression and shows where you can exert an influence to maybe overcome it. I have linked several videos in the description that explain the topic in even more detail if you are interested in such things. Okay, but let us now begin. Whenever one of our sensory organs comes into contact with a sense object, for example an image, a smell, a sound, or anything like that, we create an emotional response in our mind that can be either good, bad, or neutral. The mind supplies new thoughts to us, and it is our sixth sense in a sense. You can understand emotions as an evolutionarily fast response mechanism to avoid danger and seek beneficial situations. Our minds leap out to everything good, ignores everything neutral, and wishes the bad things to go away whenever there is the possibility. Time was a very limited resource, and fast decision-making was kinda key to survival. Sadly, emotions often overreact to potential dangers in a modern environment. And we are very sensitive to negativity, and this sensitivity outweighs the adverse effects of a few false alarms. That overreaction itself is, however, not enough to cause depression or things like that. The real cause of depression lies in our mind's tendency to prefer thinking over other sensory inputs. And that leads to a very high percentage of mental capacity or mental resources directed at thinking. And if a majority of those thoughts are bad, we run into problems in the long run. There is no way around it. And every thought causes an emotion, and our mind makes frequent things a habit. This leads to a feedback loop of thoughts that spawn negative emotions, and vice versa. Negative emotions automatically use additional mental resources, as bad things are more important than good things, as we learned in an evolutionary context. And once a certain threshold has passed, a person cannot escape that feedback loop without external help. At that point, that person is usually diagnosed with depression. The good news is, depression depends on influenceable variables. It might sound a bit bad at first, as the person that is depressed has some influence on the process and therefore some responsibility, but it also equips you with the possibility to change your situation, which is very, very good news. And if you find a working set of behaviors and mental processes, you can get better in the future. That is a guarantee. Getting out of depression is difficult, but the difficult is always preferable to the impossible. Since depression depends on a habit, so to speak, of negative thinking and uncontrollable thinking, it is important to cultivate other habits that counteract it. Mental habits are difficult to notice, and depressed people have next to no, control over what they think and how they judge their feelings. If they have control or had control and knew what were good for them, they would not engage in such behaviors. It is very simple. But they do not know that. They can't exert the influence that is necessary, and it requires quite some training to get them to actually be able to do so. For example, meditative training. And if you want to overcome depression, you first have to acknowledge and accept your condition. That is a very important step. For example, the Alcoholics Anonymous also propagates that, and it is a very good idea. Afterwards, only after you accepted that, you have three options. You can change your surroundings, you can change your emotions, or you can change your thoughts. The surroundings are very hard to change, and you will always find fault in them when you are depressed. Also, there is very much surroundings around you. It is an immense project to change all of that to your liking. So that is not a very good option. Then you could change your emotions and thought. But emotions are a lot sturdier than thoughts. Thus, it is most beneficial to interrupt the process at the thought level, which is the weakest link. And there you have the best chances to actually make a difference. Thoughts are fleeting, thoughts are subtle, they create emotions, and thus we can interrupt the chain reaction at the very first step. And the first thing people intuitively try is to wish the harmful thoughts and emotions away. Sadly, that approach is doomed to fail. Our brains cannot encode the absence of information properly, and always also trigger the thought and emotion you want to avoid. By simply wishing the emotion or thought away, it will grow stronger. It is very unfortunate, but that is sadly the reality of thinking and emotions. And the correct way to remove something from your mind is by replacing it. That way, the involved circuitry will die off from underuse. It will simply forget about it. The body removes everything on its own that is not frequently used. This is true for muscles and for neuronal structures alike, due to our energy conservation drive. So this is an effect we can use to overcome depression. Simply forgetting. For this approach to work, you have to be able to notice your thoughts when they are still small. You obviously cannot change what you don't notice. This requires a degree of mindfulness that you can learn in meditation. And as an initial alternative to mindfulness, you can go to therapy. A good therapist is like externalized mindfulness. He can direct you toward those things that need work that you cannot identify yet. He can further encourage you to look at things you would otherwise avoid. And you can accept those things then, which is the first step, as I already explained. Only then can you make progress. And the best replacement for a negative thought is something wholesome, as that does not create causes and conditions for future misery. Try not to interrupt your thinking with, for example, rage or eating chocolate or taking drugs. Those things will come back to haunt you in the future and only worsen your depression or condition you are in. Remember, those short-term solutions are what initially got you into a depressed state. Distracting yourself is very fine, as long as the activity brings either neutral or good results. And you could debate that even neutral results are kind of positive, as they interrupt the negative thought patterns. And by repeating this procedure often enough, you can condition yourself out of the depression. When you are truly mindful and experience the present moment, you cannot be depressed. The human consciousness can only do one thing at a time, but the high speed makes it seem like parallel processes. When you see or feel something, you cannot think properly. In severe cases, a depressed person needs medication that helps them interrupt the negative feedback loop that I have described. However, that is very, very important. Antidepressants do not combat the causes of a depression. They give you room to breathe, to modify the behavior that causes your problems. But you still have to do that. Just because the symptoms have gone away, and that doesn't mean that the depression is gone. Always fight causes and not symptoms. Okay, and this is more or less the entire depression framework, where you can actually exert an influence. But let us now come to the most important points. First, depression is usually triggered by neglecting basic needs for too long. Once it is there, it is kept active by malfunctioning evolutionary programming that is either designed to help and protect you, but not to harm you. Nonetheless, it can get out of control. And to overcome it, we have to interrupt the process at its weakest link, and that weakest link is thinking. It is difficult, but difficult is much, much better than impossible. And in summary, this is very important, a mixture of therapy, mindfulness, and a healthy lifestyle is likely the best approach to overcome depression for good. All of those aspects benefit each other, and a focus on a single method will rarely lead to good results. Okay. And that is pretty much it for today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that it shed some light on the process of depression. And if you feel like this video was valuable to you, feel free to leave it a like and maybe subscribe to the YouTube channel. However, if you feel like I missed something, feel free to let me know in the comment section so that I and other people can benefit from your wisdom. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day and goodbye.